So we're going to do that today. We've got your bracket and we got my bracket. And
well, Andy, we didn't want to undermine the pick show that we did either.
That's true. That's true. But our brackets are faithful to the pick show.
That's right.
we're not, we're not lacking in integrity here. We're not going to be like, I'm picking this team. Oh wait, no, tomorrow they lost.
But if you put the graphic out, the people who are listening know who you're going to pick. So, but I guess point spreads are different. Andy, I know you did this after I did it. I did it first. I don't know what your experience was. Mine was all these teams stink in my head, like as I was doing it. And it's like
feel that way.
And when I say they stink, it doesn't mean that they're not good this year. It means that they stink in comparison to what I used to be picking for the national champion. And maybe like the last 15 years, it was just like there were 2 or 3 teams in a season that was just like, they don't have weaknesses, right? Like this year, if you go down the bracket from 1 to 12, every single one of these teams has an overt weakness that can cost them a game. So like, as you know, and the thing that is interesting to me is like, I'm like the mayor of Austin today, right? Like everybody's fired up about this pick.
Oh yeah.
I was watching Texas, Georgia with you like 2 weeks ago thinking there's no way this team's going to win the national championship. Right. And then you get to doing the bracket and they keep playing teams that you think have their own general weaknesses that Texas can overcome if they figure something out offensively. And like, I found it to be incredibly difficult. I feel like if we did a 12-team bracket simulation, like from 2019, everybody would have gotten the finals correct. Right. And this year, there are 30 different variations of what you could choose for your national title game, and it makes sense, right? Like, I don't know. I mean, you could have had Penn State in the national title game from this bracket. Penn State
absolutely
beat Notre Dame. Like, it's hard. So, like, for me, Clemson is a good matchup for Texas in the first round. And I think that Arizona State, though having a wonderful year, probably is not as good as Texas. So, like, they have a pretty easy path to put them into the semifinals, right? Then you get to Oregon, and Oregon, are we sure we're confident that team's going to go 15-0? Like, it's not that they're not an amazing team or that they're not who should be considered to be the favorite.
16-0. They have to go 16-0.
But like at a certain point, everybody trips up or has a bad game or is challenged in a way that they haven't been challenged. And if I'm wrong about Oregon and they go 16-0, that's fine. But like, this is more of like a spot play for me. It's like, well, Texas is talented. They could probably run the ball pretty well. Oregon gave up a bunch of yards to Penn State over the weekend. So that to me signaled that they're susceptible to giving up some points in the playoff. Texas's defense is nasty. Like Texas could beat Oregon in my head, right? And then you put Oregon in the championship game and they're facing Notre Dame. It's like all of a sudden they're the national champion to me. And like, it was like a bizarre exercise. Now, if I had to go like bet a bunch of money on this, I don't know that I would feel confident in it because I feel like if you go through the variations, like if Tennessee beat Ohio State in the first round, that would not be surprising. If Ohio State beat Oregon in the second round, that would not be surprising. If Georgia beat Notre Dame, that would not be like, there's a lot of toss-ups on the way here. And I almost feel like the reason why I think we made a rookie mistake about the bracket and begin with is because in college basketball, the randomness and the intrigue of that is why people are so interested in doing them. In football, it's like, oh, well, there's only 12 teams and we know who the ones are probably going to play for the and like that's not true this year at all.
No.
So I haven't looked at yours yet. I don't know if On3 has tweeted yours out yet, but like I am very curious to see. I got a lot of text messages from people saying that I had very similar brackets to them. But like I don't know. Like I'm telling you as listeners here and you, Andy, right now that like that's the best I could do. And I don't know if like Texas gets dropped in the second round because they can't score. Like that's on the table, right?
Oh, it's certainly on the table. Here's the thing, and the never expand the playoff. Go back to the BCS. People don't want to hear this because they think this is stupid, but this is actually what makes it entertaining. Somebody has to win the national title. Like,
right.
Somebody's going to win this, and I realize that sounds stupid, but there's no obvious team that's going to win this. Like, I can shoot holes in any team you want. Like, we can look at my bracket. I can shoot holes in my own bracket. Like, it is pretty impossible. It's trying to figure out where the upsets are going to be. Like that's the tricky part.
Thing too, Andy, because in basketball there are always upsets.
Correct.
But this is a very different sport.
Right.
Like upsets are built. I think is it fair to say, just as a blanket statement, that upsetting a team in basketball is easier than upsetting a team in football? Like, is that just fair?
It's absolutely fair,
right? Okay.
Because one player can get super hot, change the whole course of the game.
Hits 9 threes. Next thing you know, like you're in the game in the fourth quarter. Like, and it's not as physical. Like the thing about football is that if you have good players, they might not be as good in the fourth quarter as they are in the first because they don't have depth or, they get tired. I mean, things change. So like for you, like your bracket to me is probably one that's like, no one's going to get upset about that. Like if
my finals chalk, but I think we'll go through each of our brackets. Let's put Ari's back up because I think Ari's is the one that is going to intrigue some people just because of who he's got in the final. So you went pretty chalky
in the first round.
So you have Ohio State beating Tennessee, you have Texas beating Clemson, you have Penn State beating SMU, and you have Notre Dame beating Indiana.
Mind you, all four of those teams are multi-score favorites.
Correct.
Yeah.
So that's not
like it's not like I'm like that. To me is like that was the easiest part. It's like, okay, just because it's like even if like Tennessee, I think could beat Ohio State. I think like we haven't even talked about this, but which team do you think is most likely to lose? Which higher seed is most likely to lose in the first round? I think everybody just blanketly agrees it's Ohio State, right?
Yes. This show is brought to you by Panini America, makers of the most collectible sports cards on the planet. The Luminance Football Card Series features NIL autograph cards from players including Archman and Quinn Ewers, Cam Ward, Jalen Milroe, Dylan Raiola, DJ Lagway, and Luther Burden. To start collecting, visit PaniniAmerica.net or just visit Ari's house. What you got? You got a new haul.
Yeah, I just got a big shipment back yesterday from the graders. Here's a Jared Goff rookie camo out of Panini Prism. The 2024 Panini Prism just came out. Pretty fired up about that and hoping the Panini Santa will deliver some of those. I have Giannis rookie card autograph, BGS 9.5. That one's going to be – these are nukes, okay? We got a Trevor Lawrence tie-dye out of Select here. That's a rookie card.
We need Trevor Lawrence to –
yeah, we need him to
get healthy and pick it up here.
This one's a pretty big one here. Trying to get it into the screen. That's Amon-Ra rookie cracked ice autograph. We got a Jackson Smith and Jigba Kaboom PSA 10. That one's a nuke. Got some big ones here, and this is my favorite card ever, just because of the design. But this is a Jackson Smith and Jigba rookie gold shimmer. So it's kind of a variation of the Puka one that you pulled out of the Panini product they sent you. So. Love it. Love the stuff. Got a bunch more. I'll show them off as we get going. But yeah, it's my favorite thing to do.
Yeah, but that would feel the least like an upset. Like that feels like the most even matchup there.
Two teams playing well, yeah, or two teams playing good football, and one's going to win. So that was easy. Like for me, getting through the first round was simple, and this is how it gets trickier in football than basketball, because once you get to the second round, then you just have a bunch of good teams playing good teams, right? Like then, I think like in the center of my bracket, like Texas and Penn State are playing Arizona State and Boise, but like Boise played Oregon down to a point. Like that should be a pretty good game. And it's not on someone's home field. So again, the only upset that I have in the second round, like when you think about chalk, is Notre Dame beating Georgia. And I can't imagine that spread's going to be any more than 4 points, right?
Well, and let's talk about that, because I do think, and that's why I made the headline, can Notre Dame go deep in the college football playoff? Because I think people are going to look at your bracket and be very shocked to see you have Notre Dame going to the final. And it does not shock me at all.
I told you on the show on Monday, like I've been telling people in my personal life, I think that Notre Dame at 14-1 to win the national championship is the tastiest price of all teams, because I think that like you're basically getting 14-1, and if they get through Georgia, like they're the favorite to do it. Like you're like, and like them beating Georgia straight up would be 3-1. So like at 14-1, I know they have got to go through Indiana and potentially Penn State there at the end, but like you were going to have a tremendous hedge opportunity in the finals if they just beat Georgia. So at 14-1, to me, like that's the best bet in the entire thing. But whenever I tell people that, they go, oh, Notre Dame, oh God, they haven't won a big game since 1995, and you know they suck and they lost to NIU and all the things that you hear, and it's like, guys, what did I say on the first show that Andy and I did together again in your house on August 31st, midnight, September 1, that Notre Dame is going to go undefeated and make the playoff? Like, they didn't go undefeated, but even after they lost to NIU, I stayed steadfast in my support of the team because like I have eyeballs and they're actually really good this year, right? Like you can't just go, oh, like that's the one thing I can't stand about like college football discourse too. And like, I guess it's just like fan fodder because you like to hold, you know, Schadenfreude over people's heads. But like, there's so much analysis that is done about who's going to win and lose a football game based on what happened 5 years ago. And it's like, especially now when teams are completely different than they were even 12 months earlier, like, why are we doing that? It makes like what happened to Notre Dame against Alabama in the national championship, what has happened to Notre Dame at any other point, like as of no consequence to me in the thinking. They have a nasty defense and Georgia struggles to score. Like it's not that hard.
Well, here's proof of Ari's steadfastness regarding the Irish.
I would go back to 48 hours ago and I would do whatever I could to have my job at On3 start soon so I could scream from the mountaintops what I've been feeling in my loins for the entire summer ever since I talked to Pete Sampson on my old podcast. Notre Dame is going undefeated this year. That's my official prediction, and it does not hit the same after they go into College Station and win the way that they did. But I want you guys to know, and I mean this Scout's honor, that's what I felt coming into the year. I think they've got a very good defense. They're very physical. Their quarterback needs to stay healthy. They might have some options between Bo Collins and Chris Mitchell and guys like that on this team to finally have some offensive explosiveness on the outside. Their schedule stinks. Like they are in a position right now where if I had to draw it up and what I would guess if I was doing the bracketology thing, 5 seed.
Whoa, 5 seed. Close. Yeah. They actually were number 5 in the ranking.
Yeah. I didn't see the NIU thing coming. By the way, I don't know if it was the lighting there, but like I need to get some sun. Like that. I was looking like I was looking. I think that was sexy.
Well, I think that was the lighting. I'm not designed for a 2-shot here. I'm designed for a 1-shot.
There we go. Look at that. You see what I just did?
Oh, look at that. Yeah, you switched it to.
I switched it to warm light, but now I look like less pale.
There you go.
Yeah. So like I actually just think they're really good. And I am a Georgia doubter, and I know Georgia fans get really upset. But
well, Georgia fans get upset when you think they might lose a football game. Like they're just
that's fair.
Personally
They've won
insulted
so
by that.
much, and they're amazing. And Kirby Smart's the best coach in college football. They're deep, they're talented, they're physical, they're fast, they're freaky. Like I get it. Like a Georgia fan doesn't have to explain to me why Georgia's going to win the national title. But like I do watch Georgia play, and I have all season, and I see the same overt weaknesses. And have since the beginning of the year that you guys complain about on your message board. I'm just not allowed to do it because I didn't go to Georgia, right? Like, is that how it works? But like, they know
half of them didn't go to Georgia either, so don't worry about it.
Yeah, but like, here's the thing: they are susceptible to losing. So picking them to lose, whether you're right or wrong, is a rational and fair thought process. So
I think Notre Dame might be the toughest game they would have until the final. If
Absolutely.
That's what it comes to. Like,
I mean, I don't
Notre
think
Dame's Notre Dame's a tough matchup for them because Notre Dame is really good on both lines of scrimmage. Georgia's really good on both lines of scrimmage. I think the games would be similar to the 2 Texas games, which the first Texas game, Georgia cruised because they forced a lot of turnovers. I don't know that Notre Dame's offense is going to make as many mistakes as Texas's offense made. So I think that would be a tough game. Now, I have Georgia beating Notre Dame in the quarters in my bracket, but I understand exactly where you're coming from. Like, I see where that's a tricky spot for Georgia.
Yeah, and like, listen too. Like, I also watch the games, guys, and like, I know Notre Dame didn't play the toughest schedule, right? Like, I get it. So if we find out that Notre Dame looked awesome, is the way that they did all year because it was just a product of not being tested, and then the one time they're tested, they just get their doors blown off, then I'll have to live with that. But like, I'm just assessing the players and the way that they look. And like, I'm just trying to be reasonable, but also not just blanketly picking all top seeds to just do it. You know what I mean? Like you've got to find, it's not just going to go exactly the way that everybody thinks it's going to go. So you have to also try to be creative. And like, I do feel like if Notre Dame gets past Georgia, they will make the title game. Like that's like that to me is it's like a one.
Well, and if you look at the rest of that bracket, there's a reason for that. They'd be favored over pretty much everybody else. I don't know if they'd be favored over Penn State. I think that would be a bit of a coin flip.
But you know what I realized about myself while doing this, Andy? I realized that my hatred for the 12-team playoff field was rooted in a place where it's pointless. Because
that world doesn't exist anymore.
But now that I'm looking at this bracket and like you're like, when the games come, it's going to be awesome. I never doubted that it's going to be awesome. But like I did not think that I know more football is good. There's no such thing as more football not being good.
But I understand you were worried about there would be some team that's just so super stacked.
Yeah, that this is stupid.
Yeah,
and this isn't. This is amazing. Like I have honestly. Let's go down the list. You know how we play that game of like who could win the national title? Like let's go down the list of 1 through 12 of teams that you think can and can't win it all.
Yep. Okay, let's go.
Okay, let's just start with number 1.
Oregon can absolutely win the national title. Yep.
2, Georgia. Obviously, yes, right? What about Boise?
And now let's acknowledge the quarterback situation. We don't think Carson Beck, it doesn't sound like Carson Beck's going to play, but Gunnar Stockton came in and looked fine against Texas, against one of the best defenses in the country. I'm not as worried about that replacement situation as maybe I should be. I don't know. But Georgia, I think, can win the national title. In fact, that's who I have winning the national title.
Yeah, and I also think it's certainly on the table that like Gunnar Stockton comes in, plays awesome, and then like we just know who their quarterback is now.
Yeah,
you know
he was
what I mean?
Also he was also a blue chip prospect. Like it's not like he's nobody. So.
And he didn't crap his pants in a very high leverage moment. So I think that means something, and having a month to prepare basically for your next game, I think puts you in a position. And also Georgia mauls you, right? Like that's how they win their game. They don't win their games by scoring 60 points. They do it by beating the crap out of you until your will's broken. So like that still exists.
All right, Boise State. I don't think they can win the national title.
I don't either.
Because I think I do think they can win a game and get to the semis and maybe win 2 games. But the problem with Boise State is there's one guy who's just transcendent and really good. And if you can limit him, then you've got a really good chance of winning that game. And so Mountain West teams selling out to stop Ashton Genty will not look like Penn State selling out to stop Ashton Genty, or Texas selling out to stop Ashton Genty, or Georgia selling out to stop Ashton Genty.
We've seen teams not stop him. Nobody's stopped him. And I don't think stopping him is the goal, but we've seen teams bottle him up enough to not let him kill them.
Right.
And like they're not
it's like let Michael Jordan score his 25.
Yeah.
And hope Scottie Pippen doesn't kill you.
Yeah, you're not gonna, hold Michael Jordan to 8 points, but you don't want him to score 60, right? Like that's the game we're playing here. But yeah, okay.
All right.
So for Arizona State, I still would probably say no to them.
I would say no. I don't think they can win 3 in a row.
3 in a row is a lot. And 3 in a row against what could be Texas, Oregon, and Georgia is like a.
By the way, we're making the argument to see this thing straight again because we're about to go on a run of teams that we think win the national title.
Yes, right. So number 6, Penn State.
Yes.
I don't know. Yes, we can make it. Yes,
I think they can. We just saw them against Oregon, which everybody agrees is the best team in the country, and they played a 1 possession game, and their offense looked dynamic for once. Like, there's a path.
Yeah.
And the path is they have a great defense.
Yeah, you can't just say no, I guess. And I would have just said blatantly no before the Oregon game, but the Oregon game changed the way I view them a little bit.
Yep.
Okay, so then we would go to 5, which is Texas, because we skipped them.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Texas, yes, they can win the national title. Okay. You have them winning the national title. No argument here.
7, Notre Dame, obviously, I have them in the title game, so I would say yes for them.
Agreed. I think great on both lines of scrimmage. Quarterback has come in. I think a lot of Notre Dame getting better as the season went on is Riley Leonard getting healthy, getting comfortable in that offense. Like, people forget Riley Leonard was injured when he got to Notre Dame in the winter and spring. He couldn't really do everything. It took a while. And I think now you're finally seeing what he can do. So I think I think Notre Dame might be getting a little underestimated, not by you, but by a lot of other people for that particular reason. He's more dynamic than people realize. Next one on the list.
Who are we at? We with Notre Dame. So 8 is Ohio State.
We're at Ohio State now.
Could.
Ohio State can absolutely win the national title.
Tennessee, I think they could at 9.
Tennessee can too. Yep.
What about Indiana at 10?
I don't think so. I don't think they can win 4 in a row.
Yeah. I don't think so either. Okay. And then we have Clemson at 12, and I don't remember.
SMU at 11.
And SMU at 11. So I think the answer would be no to me on both of those.
Yeah, I don't see either of those winning 4 in a row.
So I think we got to 8 out of 12 can.
That's pretty good.
And like, if you would have asked me before the 12-team playoff started, how many teams can win the national championship, my answer never would have been more than 4, because that's the way it used to be set up. So if you're going to get to a point where it's 8 out of 12, I think that probably is more of an indication that that's what the bracket should be. Like that to me, it's like it should. Like the only teams that I think should be playing are teams that prove to the season that they can do it.
That'd be a nice, clean 3-round playoff. It'd be fun.
And then like also too, you don't have to waste your time pretending. But at the same time, too, it's like, what if SMU wins 3 in a row? And it's just like things in sports happen all the time that you don't expect. So, like, I guess just like because we said no, you can't just like blanketly say, they shouldn't be in the playoff. So,
Producer River points out that everybody we said can win the national title. It's the Big Ten teams, the SEC teams, and Notre Dame. I will push back on that idea that it's just like if Clemson had been better, had played better this season. We would be looking at them as a team that probably could.
What if Miami was in?
Yeah,
like
it's not impossible for an ACC or Big 12 team to be part of that list.
Yeah, and like the interesting thing is that like they just have the most teams in, so there's more options too. Like it's just the way it is. So
and also can we go to the one on mine that people are going to notice? So I have Boise State beating Penn State in the second round. There's going to be a game like this. That was my thing. Is like in the first 2 rounds, there's going to be at least one game where we go, what? That's the one I picked. Like I can see Ashton Genty going crazy against the first team he plays, and Maddox Madsen having a really good game, and Boise State's defense is solid. We don't know what Penn State's offense is going to look like necessarily. If it looks like it did against Oregon, it doesn't matter. They're going to win. Penn State will win. But if it looks like it did a lot of the rest of the season, Boise State's got a shot in this game. Like, how are we going to respond to that first real? And remember, that's not a seed upset because Boise State is the higher seeded team, but it will be a Vegas upset if that happens.
Yeah. I look at your bracket and like I just be like that could totally happen. Like all of it. You know what I mean? Like that's the thing that's interesting about
Oregon, Texas is the one I want to see. Like the Oregon, Texas semifinal game sounds like fire. I would love that game.
Yeah. Yeah, it would. And I kind of wish that Texas didn't have its entire running back room decimated before the season started, because then they would probably be, I think their offense would be better. I mean, their running backs have done a more than serviceable job this year. But if they had a home run hitter, like if they had Bijan back there or something, like could you imagine how much different this team could be offensively? But also too, like, and I didn't say this when I was talking about my bracket, but like I also feel like there's a chance that like Arch Manning could come in and completely unlock something with them.
You've mentioned something like that before.
I mean, like, that could.
But you're right. You're right. That changes the math on it, because we're basing this on a Texas offense that has been somewhat inconsistent, that has made some pretty critical mistakes at times. If that were to change, that offense and that defense together, suddenly you've got a different animal. Yeah.
I just think like if matching up an explosive offense with that defense, like I don't know. Like I see a lot of comments here, Andy, of like, yeah, Notre Dame's not beating Georgia. It's like, okay, well, when it's a 2-point spread, go bet your mortgage payment on it then, since you're so sure. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's going to be a close game. So, yeah, but this was fun. I don't know, like, I don't know how many other directions we could have gone with it other than what me and you did, right? Like, do you think
There are a
there's
couple. I
anybody
mean, we
from
could have
the
gone
middle of it that could make a run?
crazy, I guess.
Like here,
Well, here's one. Ohio State just runs through the bracket. Like,
yeah,
and I know everybody's going to pile on me for saying it because I'm predicting Tennessee to beat Ohio State in my bracket. By the way, I think that game is pretty much a toss-up. But there's also a world where Ohio State, which has probably the best roster player for player, just runs through the thing. It's possible.
Ohio State would have to be the team they were supposed to be. And I just don't have faith that they can do that. If they're not going to do it by now, if they haven't done it by now, then why would you think they could do it now? Right? Like, I don't know.
I don't think so. But also,
like if 2022 Ohio State versus Georgia shows up, they'll win the national title. I just don't think they have that in them. And they also, and the difference between this team and that team was that this team's offensive line stinks right now. And if you have a bad offensive line, that's why I had them. That's why I have them out early, because
and they have to play a good defensive line right off the bat. Like,
yeah, they're going to defensive line right away. Yeah.
So if they get past this one, they also have to play a great defensive line next week. So
yeah,
it is tough, but this is fun. And so we have a poll in the chat, and I think the last time River checked, 56% said I had the better bracket, 44% said you did, but it's polling basically 50-50, and that's great, because the fact that we can't figure this out, we can't have an obvious, this is who's going to win the national title, or these two teams are definitely going to play for the national title, is the whole point of this thing.
Yep. And, I think that poll would also reflect how many fans are in the chat that root for a team that we had go for far. You know what I mean? But, like, I also think, too, that, like, both are plausible. There's nothing in my bracket that you couldn't talk me off of. Or
well, and I think the Ohio State fans now are not, like, they're not. When I just said Ohio State could run through this thing, I bet the people who are kind of harumphing them the loudest about that are the Ohio State fans, because they're a little down.
Yeah.
But watch if they beat Tennessee. Those people are coming back with a vengeance. They're like, all right, we're back. This is the team it was supposed to be. Let's go.